near real-time soil moisture index monitor for food security using integrated SMOS and SMAP. This is a talk organized by Princeton Climate PCI initiative, and I just think that there is some confusion in sending the PDF file, so the logo is gone. So, but it is by PCI. So, hi everyone. My name is Sarah Sadri. I'm a statistical hydrologist and coming from an irrigation engineering background. So this talk is already published in the Journal of Remote Sensing, but this presentation is geared toward familiarizing you with the content and giving you some examples and the results. And I want to acknowledge the collaborators on the paper, as well as the collaborators that worked for this presentation from PCI to happen. So with that, I give you a little introduction about the motivation for the paper. So surface soil moisture is an essential climate variable in hydrology, and that is due to the fact that it is a combination of so many other energy, water, and carbon processes such as infiltration, precipitation, runoff, and evapotranspiration. So given that importance of soil moisture, definitely it has an effect on the agricultural drought. That normally starts with the lack of precipitation, but then manifests in the soil moisture. So it causes drought, and if it's too much water, especially during the agricultural season in areas that can cause waterlogged condition, it doesn't drain properly. So it will cost a lot of problems and damages to crop yield in developed countries, and literally suffering of millions in less developed areas of the world. So given all that, it's very important to have a global representation of soil moisture conditions for improving forecasting of both droughts and floods, for farm insurance and policies in place, and also agricultural crop planning. But unfortunately, despite the importance of soil moisture, it's the least observed variable globally. And it's a challenge. And generally, also, when we report on drought and floods, it's reported based on indices, which are used to show the intensity of anomalous conditions. And for developing indices, we need a long-term data. And that's also another obstacle, because not only soil moisture is the least observed variable in hydrology, also there is not long record of soil moisture readily available and consistently across the globe. So there are indices that are mostly based on precipitation, because that's the most observed variable in the world, such as a standardized precipitation index, or PDSI. And you know, CMI, SMDI, there are a lot of indices, but the thing is, none of these use the satellite soil moisture observations. They're not in near real time, and they cannot build toward a prediction tool. And furthermore, they are mostly useful in regional scales rather than global scales. Now, there are two satellites or two missions that monitor soil moisture around the globe on daily basis. And one of them is the NASA Soil Moisture Active Passive, which is called the SMAP satellite. And the other one is European Space Agency Soil Moisture and Ocean Salinity, that is called SMOS. And these two, SMOS was launched in 2010, but the SMAP was launched in 2015. And since the launch of SMAP, there has been an interest by NASA to build a product based on SMAP that measures or monitors soil moisture index in near real time for both drought and pluvial conditions. But the short term of SMAP that at the time that we were conducting the research was 2017, 2018, and SMAP was launched in 2015, this was an obstacle. So our goal was that what if we come and integrate soil moisture data together as one data set to make it look like a SMAP, but a longer record of SMAP data. And the reason that they should be integrated, and this is a challenge, is that the two satellites go on different orbits with different angles, different height from the Earth. So essentially, the type of data that they collect, even though it is surface soil moisture, they are not consistent. They're not representative of each other. So when we integrate it, we have to use some statistical tricks to make them consistent. So our goal here was to develop a global monitoring product based on integrated osmosis map. That monitors soil moisture in terms of probability percentile for both dry and wet conditions. The advantage is that the increased data sets looks like a SMAP with higher global revisit frequency and extended period of record that is unattainable by either of these satellites alone. This table shows you the type of data that we used in this study. Both level 3 SMAP and SMOS was used. The SMAP is at 36 kilometer resolution and SMOS is 25 kilometer resolution, but we upscaled it to match the SMAP. And the integrated osmosis map starts from 2010 at 36 kilometer resolution. For validation, we used a European Space Agency or ESA CCI integrated data that is an integrated product of 11 active and passive satellites starting from 1978. We also use land surface model products that simulate soil moisture globally, as well as a standardized precipitation index for 1 month. The shorter term of a standardized precipitation index is more appropriate for being compared with drought and soil moisture, even though it is not based on soil moisture, it's based on precipitation. Just as a curiosity, is everybody hearing me well and okay?
Yes, we're good.
Okay, great. So before we begin, I want to show you some climatology data, and that's just averaging and doing the standard deviation on all the global data for different soil moisture products. Here on the first column, we have the mean, and the second column, we have the variability globally. And for each row, which is one of the soil moisture products. And if you look at the average global soil moisture, which is the volumetric percent, we see that there is difference between average soil moisture globally based on what product we are using. And generally, VIC, which is a land surface model, is totally a different mechanism for generating land soil moisture, and that's why it looks very different in terms of the average from the other three products, which is ESA, CCI, SMOS, and integrated osmosis map. The last three ones are remote sense data, and the VIC is land surface model, and it systematically is different. ESA, CCI, and SMOS have very similar pattern, although European Space Agency's SMOS product tends to look at the world as a drier place. SMOS and osmosis map look pretty consistent in terms of dry areas on the globe. For example, the Saharan Africa, Arabian Peninsula, Middle East, Western China, they all look the same extent dry and like desert-like. However, both SMOS and osmosis map also look at the other parts of the world as dry and intensely dry, such as the western sides of the continents of North and Southern America, the Central Australia, Southern Africa, and even like west of Alaska. So it looks, they all agree. And in fact, the disagreement is more on the wetness of the planet. So the northern latitudes seem to be more different in terms of wetness, especially the areas that contains Canada and Eastern United States. So this flowchart shows the methodology that was involved in achieving a near real-time soil moisture index product globally. As I mentioned, both SMOS and SMAP data come in, and for every grid, every 36-kilometer grid on Earth, for every month, we made a different bin and integrated the data using two different, completely different statistical approaches. One was the Bayesian conditional process, the other one was CDF mapping. And after each bin for every month had integrated data, we fit a 4-parameter beta distribution to each of these data sets to calibrate it. And then the question was like, okay, is Bayesian conditional process better to move forward with, or CDF mapping? And for that, we did another statistical test called Kolmogorov-Smirnov, or KS test, to see how many of these grids on Earth pass the beta distribution sanity test. So basically, in that way, the Bayesian conditional process was a winner. So we proceed with the results from there. We did validation, specifically on the Canadian Prairies ecoregion, that I will mention it later in the talk. And also the last stage was making it in a near real time. And that means that there is a system should be in place that updates every 24 hours as the new data come in. They get integrated based on the months that we are in. For every grid on Earth, there is a percentile that is found for it, and eventually a spatial map is generated. Here I briefly touch on the topic of beta distribution, which was a contribution of this paper scientifically, because the non-standard beta distribution is not confined between 0 and 1. And because we had a short period of observed data, as you can see on the CDF plot here with the little black circles, the observation is pretty limited for one grid, for 1 month. But with the beta distribution, we could and an asymptotic approach, we could extend the tails of this distribution to take care of those unseen drought and flood events. So the blue dots that you see on the CDF are the ones that are calculated for every grid and every month to extend the tails. Even if we have a lot of observations, we still want to extend the tails to make sure that it's embodying those unseen drought and floods. And from that aspect, this was, again, another level of optimization problem. So this has been done routinely with coding in for the entire globe. And eventually, as the new data come in, they get translated into a probability percentile and then color coded based on the standard of US drought monitor to be categorized in terms of dryness from D0 to D4. And also we included the pluvial condition based on the GRACE from products from JPL. And so it involves both drought conditions and pluvial conditions. And the map, it looks like this. This is a map that we developed a website for and overlaid it over Google Maps. So we allow the user to go in there, play with the dates back and forth, and zoom in, zoom out, and also download the maps for their own use. So this is another contribution of the work. Now the validation part, we chose the Canadian Prairies Ecozone, or CPE. This is the area in the southern area of the 3 central provinces of Manitoba, Saskatchewan, and Alberta. This is quite a unique area because it's more than 80% of farmland of Canada is concentrated in this area, and it's mostly rain-fed. So it's very vulnerable to abnormality in climate, and it's continuously being hit by drought or waterlogged conditions because it's very flat and it's very cold. And most of the time, while other places in the world during agricultural seasons get to plant 2-3 crops, this window of agriculture farming for Canada is very, very short. It's like 6 to 6.5 months. So they manage to do generally one type of crop, and that's it. Here on the left, you see the mean and variability of the Canadian prairies based on the seasons. And if you look at summer, for example, that's the time that they get the most amount of precipitation. But then if you look at the variability in the summer, it's with huge interannual variability. Some months they get, some summers they get enough rain, some summers they get huge droughts. And in fact, Government of Canada and at federal and provincial level ends up paying millions and billions of dollars in damages due to the climate abnormality for drought and waterlogged conditions. Given all that, we thought this is a good place to look at because there is a very important need for developing an outlook for areas like this, especially at the beginning of growing season. So on the left, there is a map with the blue dots. These are the center grid points for a SMAP, and this SMAP orbit path is also shown here in the arrow. There were 8 grids that near the validation points, in situ validation points. 4 of them are located in Saskatchewan, and 4 of them were in Manitoba, but I deleted 2 of them because they're close to these urban areas and they're not very good with the data. So we have in total 6 grid points that are close to in situ data to be compared. So in the paper, there is some plots about comparing the in situ data. And as we compared it, we saw that the in situ data correspond a lot with the SMAP data and have a higher correlation with the SMAP data and SMAP data. In this stage, in these plots, we compared the indices, the monthly indices from SPI on the top and from the VIC, CCI, and SMAP at the bottom. For only grid 2 and grid 6 are shown here. Grid 2 is in Saskatchewan, SK, grid 6 is in Manitoba, MB. And generally, the drought indices are showing similarity to the pattern of SPI1. I have to also say this is from 2012 to 2017, and the pink bars identify August, months of August. For comparison, we had a big drought in 2012 and the other one in 2017. And they are both captured in the plots. However, they don't agree necessarily on the severity. SMOS's map and ESA's CCI product, they seem to be very syncing together all the time. But again, VIC is kind of different from that point of view. Then one of the final questions we had that, okay, which of these indices are better or which of them can be used more? So that's a very interesting question. And we broke it down to 2 types of question. One is that which of these indices is more accurate? And the other one is which of these indices is more reliable? So the first one, accuracy, is a matter of having a lot of ground truth, which is not necessarily available everywhere, but based on what we had available, SMOS's SMAP index and also SMAP data showed that they are the closest to the ground truth. So that's as far as reliability, accuracy goes. And then it comes to reliability, and reliability can be done in a sense that which of these indices is actually acting or behaving like an index. And in long term, if you have index, no matter from what variable on the planet, each of these grids should have equal opportunity or equal chance to get any point from 0% to 100%. In other words, if you plot all the data for all grids as CDF, they should fit on one-to-one line. So we did that for the Canadian prairies for indices derived from VIC, from SMOS's map and CCI, and plotted them and then compared it with the dash line, which is a one-to-one line. And we see that all of them have some sort of bias because none of them fit perfectly onto one-to-one line. However, the type of not fitting is different, which gives us another idea about the tails of the distributions. And here on the left, we plotted the 10th percentile, 50th percentile, and 90th percentile of the Canadian prairies only for the ecozone from VIC, SMOS's map, and CCI. And if you compare the CDF plot with these maps, we see that on the top, like upper left, when it's supposed to show pluvial condition, all of these 3 indices are above the one-to-one line, meaning that they tend to underestimate the amount of water in waterlogged condition, all of them. So they have all that bias. And then when we come to the drought condition, which is the lower part of the one-to-one line or the CDF, we see that, first of all, CCI is right on one-to-one line. So probably what CCI is showing as drought or severe drought or abnormal drought condition is completely the ground truth. But for example, osmosis map tends to downplay it. So for example, if it's extreme drought condition, it might be one level less, like osmosis map shows it less than what is happening on the ground. And Vic, on the other hand, is a little bit above to one-to-one line. So it's kind of overestimate how dry the land is. So CCI tends to do the best when in the case of extreme drought conditions, while when it comes to more D0 or D1 level drought, both osmosis map and CCI tend to behave the same way. So we also compared the product from the average monthly indices from soil moisture on the left, which is from our product, to the Agriculture Agri-Food Canada monthly map release that is for showing drought, for the drought watch. And this is, their product is not based on soil moisture only. It's based on, like similar to USDM, it's based on different models as well as expert opinions. But we wanted to compare the months of August for 2012, 2013, 16, and 17 with the report from Agriculture Agri-Food Canada on the right column. And we see that here the spatial pattern is very similar, the intensity is very similar. So basically our product is capturing what Agriculture Agri-Food Canada is releasing. 2017 summer for Canada was a 100-year drought situation, a lot of forest fires, wildfires, as well as relocation of cattle and damages to the crops happened. And we can see that the D3, D4 pockets of drought are present. And in the end, we also compared our product, which is plot D, GSMIM, which is the Global Soil Moisture Index Monitor, which is what we generate on a daily basis as a 3-day composite map with other products that are released from other institutes and organizations from other parts of the world. But keep in mind, when we are comparing it, it's at we are doing it at best of our ability, because none of these products are merely, again, based on soil moisture, nor they are 3-day composite maps. For example, USDM is a weekly map based on, again, expert opinions and other models. CDM is a monthly map. EUDM is 10-day map, and AFDM, which is African Drought Monitor, is based on Vic, a land surface model. However, we try to capture around August 31st, 2017. We see that our GSMIM in the north or west of US captures the drought pretty well. It corresponds with USDM because, as I mentioned, 2017 was a very severe drought year, and the extension of Canadian drought is also seen on the plains of Nebraska and Montana. And then there is also a Southern California drought that is captured by USDM, but it's not captured by our product GSMIM. And that after reviewing the material and notes, it turned out to be a groundwater induced drought, which is based on over withdrawal of groundwater. And that's why it's not reflected in GSMIM. Also, that was a very dry year for Europe with heat wave Lucifer. And by 31st of August, most of Europe recovered, except for some for Scandinavian countries, as well as part of France and Germany, Bosnia. And that's also reflected on GSMIM. And then the consistency between the AFDM and GSMIM is also apparent, except for the south of Africa and island of Madagascar. And we do think that's, again, based on the systematic difference of how the data are achieved and processed. So overall, that was our work. We succeeded to develop a global soil moisture index monitor based on a short period of a SMAP product, which was the initial goal and interest. This index performed similar to ESA's CCI index, but the advantage of a SMAP is in near real time. Now, the future work can be in integrating a SMAP with CCI index for even a longer term data sets to kill some of those biases we saw earlier. And the 4-parameter distribution showed to be a very useful distribution for modeling soil moisture globally, especially with asymptotic approach and Bayesian conditional process. And because this GSMIM uses this distribution, it can be used toward building a prediction tool for soil moisture. And last but not least, this was a step toward bridging the gap between the satellite data and on-the-ground improvements in water and food security. So with that, I would like to thank you and my collaborators at PCI. So if there is any question, I'm happy to address.
Thank you very much, Dr. Sara Sadri, for the wonderful presentation.
Of course, my pleasure.
Okay, now the time for questions. Any questions for Dr. Sara Sadri?
I have a quick question.
Sure.
Okay.
I might have missed it, but uh, are these data available publicly, or are you planning to make this publicly available?
What do you mean by data? Do you mean the actual integrated data, like the numeric data, or the maps?
The maps, the results, like for the end user.
Yeah, the website is there, and the maps for the period that the project was running are working. One of the tricky part of running near real-time soil moisture data or any near real-time product is that someone should be actually devoted to continuously update the data and update the website and even recalibrate the whole system on annual basis. The project ended when it got published in 2020. So we are hoping to start again with the prediction aspect of it. But if you go on the website, it's not up to date. Like you cannot get the map of like last week or last month. I'm working on updating this map data. The other problem is that NASA or ESA, every now and then they change the format of the remote sensing data. So we have to reprocess all of the data again. So this will be addressed soon. So we are actually updating the codes and format to regenerate all these maps again from the time that it stopped, which I think it was July 2020. So yeah, there is a website. If you Google my name, or I can send you the website link. I can actually post it on the chat. I think that would be the best.
Yes, you can do that, please.
So
Sure.
in the near future, uh, are you planning to have the system up and running for free?
It is for free.
Okay, so it's
It's
data
already,
supplied by the government satellites, right?
yes, but the data are available for free.
Okay.
Now, I don't know, again, this is something, a question for Dr. Eric Wood, because I'm not like, as long as it was being funded, it was free, but I don't want to say something that's not related to my area. But if you go on the website, I'm going to post the link and you can look at it, and it will be, the whole system is in the transition process. So how it will turn out in the near future is something that Dr. Wood would definitely be a better person than me to answer.
Okay, I understand. Thank you. I guess some
There
people,
is one more
organizations
question for
are happy
you.
to pay for those data sets.
Sorry?
Um, I said, sounds good. Thank you. And
Of
my
course.
thought is that some organizations will be probably happy to pay to get this kind of maps and data, like insurance
Oh,
agencies, for example, the private insurance industry.
Yes, and we have to update the data as well, but that's again for Dr. Wood to answer. I posted the link. If you go on it, it's the data of today, but you have to go back to 2020, the time the project was running. So, but it's in the process of being updated, and maps will be posted soon.
Thank you.
Okay,
Thank
there's one more question for you, Dr. Sarah Sadri. So,
Sure.
Dr. Robert William, you can go ahead to ask. Dr. Robert Raj. Yes, now you can go ahead. Please unmute your audio. Okay, now you go ahead.
Hi, Prakash.
Hi.
Hi, Sarah.
Hi.
I had dropped the question. Just check it out in the chat room.
Will the data help in mitigating the flood and drought? Yes, because generally right now we have a lot of models and tools with different agencies that they do monitor drought and flood conditions. This is definitely one of the state-of-art tools for doing that. It's very comprehensive. It's using direct remote sensing data. So, and because you can go back and forth with dates, you can see the evolving droughts or evolving pluvial conditions in near time. And even it's, as we are building the prediction tool for it, then we can, develop to mitigate flood and drought and know which areas in the world are more prone to being at soil moisture wise in trouble soon, which is very important because soil moisture is where our food grows, especially in the beginning of the agricultural season when that 0 to 5 centimeter soil depths moisture matter. So yes, definitely.
Based on the data, any solution has been sorted out?
Can you say again?
Based on this data, have you proposed any solution for mitigating flood and drought?
That's a very good question, and also is mentioned in the paper that this is a monitoring tool, although no mitigations, solutions is attached to this. So this is at the point that we built the backbone and the structure for how even to have a system in place to warn us about the regional developments of drought and floods, but with working more with the insurance companies and policymakers, this can be set up into what you're referring to. Definitely one of the potentials of the system. And that's why I mentioned that it's bridging the gap between satellite data and addressing potential food and water security issues.
Permanent solution has been sorted out and published.
Yes.
Refer my papers. Okay.
Yeah.
I had published 3 papers. Basic, we had knocked down, and we had given the permanent solution for mitigating both the flood and drought conditions. Okay.
Yeah.
For that only, I am more interested in with the aerial mapping. How far aerial mapping is helping, because physical process is totally different. Aerial mapping, you had mentioned about 5 centimeters.
Right.
But physical process is not related with the 5 centimeter.
Yeah. So
physical process is totally different.
mm-hmm.
It depends upon the total space.
Total column. Yeah. Definitely. That's
So,
another interesting area. Depending on the growth stage of the food, different depths become important. So, for example, at the beginning, when we are concerned about when to start cropping and when, like the initial growth stage, that 5 centimeter matters. But as soon as the crop, depending on the type of crop, grows in with the roots, it goes down down further down. So the surface soil moisture no longer really matters, but the root zone soil moisture matters more, and the reserve for the groundwater. So whether the crop can get that or not. So yeah, that's also totally valid. So maybe the application of this can be only limited to the part that the crops are starting to grow. And after that, we have to develop like root zone global system, which is its own challenge, because at the moment we don't have, we do have actually this assimilated data that NASA generates with the root zone data that can be built into a global root zone condition. But for that, again, the short term will be a challenge, and we have to find another long-term root zone data to make it, more reliable as an index or as a tool.